a nice house.
Ladder for my kids' house. Single ladder.
Yeah? Wow. Is there any single ladder company?
No. Construction, couple ladders, single ladder.
You still have yellow?
That's the old reserve.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, what you saw basically is a little bit, just a piece of what Detroit is like. The best way to describe Detroit, like I said, is if you divide Detroit into thirds. 1/3 of the city is completely vacant, there's nothing left. 1/3 of the city is vacant properties. As of last year's estimates, they said that Detroit had about 125,000 vacant properties. They're in the process of trying to tear down some of those. They figure over this year alone, 2010, they're going to tear down about 3,000 homes, which is just making a dent. And then the last third of the city is occupied, but when you say occupied, the question is how occupied, you know. But what I did was I put together a book, and I guess I got the book here. But basically, you know, these guys work constantly. They work one day on, one day off. That's it. They work a cycle before they get a Kelly day, so it's not the traditional 24/48 or the 24/72. These guys, you know, get their butts kicked, they go home, they work a side job to make ends meet for the family, and then they go back to work again. So I don't know how they do it. And when I've asked
how many hours a week is that?
They're working 3 to 4 days a week.
So they work like probably 56 hours?
56 hours.
So under 50?
Yeah, but they do have a Kelly day break
right.
in between, and then they start a cycle and they go off.
That was the old schedule that Waterbury had. 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 24 off, and then they had a 96
They
off.
do about 3 or 4 days before they wind up with a Kelly day.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact information.
It's probably the same schedule that Waterbury had. Wow, that's really getting their butt kicked.
Yeah, and then they come back to work, and I always ask them, you know, how you guys come back to work all refreshed and happy, and they go, we love our job. You know,
they're happy because they know they're going to work.
That's probably one of the very few cities in the country that's going to work and having a good time.
Do they do medicals out there?
No, they don't do medical. They wanted to introduce medicals, but they wanted it under a certain way with their contract, and it didn't get accepted. So right now,
how would they be able to? With all the fires that are going up, they wouldn't have.
They would start missing fires. They'd actually start missing fires.
Then they wouldn't be too happy.
I don't think they'd be happy.
Right.
You know, for guys who love going to fires, you know, this is the only department I've seen that changes their gear 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow, I remember that back in the in New York City back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We got a little bit doing that.
Yeah, these guys, their equipment is beat up. It's abused. It's you know, it's just worn out, and they keep going. They're like Energizer bunnies. They never stop.
How many companies do they have in Detroit?
Right now, matter of fact, the last trip I was out there, I was talking to one of the captains, and we sat down and looked at it. They're down to 32 engine companies, which rotate. Some of the companies are closed on a daily basis. 17 ladder companies, 6 squad companies, and 8 battalions.
Right now, the squads, are they like Chicago squads? Or?
They're like a rescue in New York. They're set up pretty much the same way, but it's a 4-man vehicle. All their manning is 4 men. They try to keep 4 in the vehicles at all times.
That's the minimum they can go for?
That's their maximum that they can have on the rig, and then they can drop short if something happens.
They can go shorter than 4?
Yeah, if something happens. If they're, So the squads are broken up into different parts of the city, so they, you know, cover the city pretty well. And they always try to leave 1 squad available while all the fires are happening. They can't tie up all the squads, because if there's going to be an auto extrication, they got to have a squad free to do extrication.
Right.
Something happens.
And you said you get 3 on 1, or 3 and 2 on a...
On an initial response, they get 3 engines, 1 ladder, the squad, and 1 chief. That's what they refer to as a box alarm.
Do they get the second ladder if it's a job?
What they ask for sometimes is a working ladder. The ladder who responded to the call might respond, but the ladder might not operate. Something on the ladder might not work, his nozzle. Those are all pre-piped waterways, so I've seen many ladders out there where the nozzle's missing on the end of the tip. So they have to bring in a working waterway, so they'll call for another truck, special call for that.
They have tower ladders there?
They have 3 tower ladders in the city of Detroit. Yeah, those are supplement units that they use.
Okay.
And again, those are special called as they need them to.
Special call. Do they go on any boxes, or are they just kept in reserve?
Some of them are. They do have like a response area that they would go into. That they would be first doing those areas. They would respond on that.
Right.
And then the interesting thing that happens in Detroit a lot is not only do you see 1 vacant dwelling going, but you'll see, I've seen as many as 5 going at one time.
Well, in your book, you have many pictures.
Yes, showing that. Matter of fact, it's funny. One day, I went out and pre-planned the neighborhood one day, and when I say pre-planned, I mean I was looking at the neighborhood, taking a look at it, and lo and behold, that was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and when I stopped by the firehouse and saw the guys later that night, about 2 in the morning, that whole section of houses was on fire. I looked at one corner because of the vacants, I took pictures of it, and turned out later that night the whole block, 3 houses were going on that block.
Wow.
And that was quite a fire. You know, the guys all asked me, where were you? But I said, you know where I was with them. So, there was no question asked as to where I was. But,
somebody saw you there.
They refer to it as fire going throughout when they pull up on arrival. And then usually what they do is they have the engines come in line and dump their monitors. And they try to darken down as much of the fire as they can before they get a water supply and send the guys in.
They do try to go inside?
They still go inside. They believe in getting inside, getting the fire out, and, being available to go to the next fire. But the city seems, when I say the city, the fire department administration seems to have set up now where they're letting vacant buildings that have no exposures just go. Let them go. They're letting them burn down to the ground.
Okay, well, there was an article, in fact, a lot of my viewers out there probably saw it, it dates back to March 9th of this year. Embattled Detroit wants to get small. And, this was talking about the population, so it's like you said, they're saying 800,000, and it's probably a lot less than that. Back in 1950, there was 1,849,000 people. In 1990, there was 1 million people in Detroit, and now they're down to below 800,000. But Dave, you're telling me an interesting story about the demolition of these buildings here. You want to get into that a little bit?
Last week I was in Detroit, and I stopped in, was reading the local paper down there, the Detroit Free Press, and they started tearing some of the houses down, but they had to stop. The EPA stopped them from tearing down the houses because they didn't have permits to tear down these houses. So I guess the city said they were going to apply for the permits. They tried to tear down a few more, and then the feds came in and said you can't tear down houses without the proper permits. So that, as far as I know right now, that's on hold unless they got the permits this week. I haven't seen nothing reading online in their paper, any changes.
The way political bureaucracy works, by the time they get the permits, I think they'll be burned down.
More than likely. I guess what they want to do is they want to relocate